Hello everyone, this is HuskyStarcraft here, back with some more StarCraft 2 Heart of the Swarm action. This time is going to be between Scott down in the bottom left side. Everyone's favorite style of music, obviously. He is going to be the red Protoss, and as the blue Terran up at the top right side, it is going to be Beast. So it is going to be a PvT, and yeah, it's on Daybreak, a map that we've seen quite a bit of. Kind of curious to see if we're going to actually see it in the Heart of the Swarm release. Although one thing that Blizzard has been doing recently is modifying their map pool to have some really good maps. Daybreak is one of those maps, but we're going to start seeing, I think, even better and better maps going into Heart of the Swarm, because Blizzard has finally realized, hey, we don't necessarily make the best competitive maps. We do make really good ladder maps and stuff like that, but they are starting to utilize those much better custom maps made by the professional map makers. Yes, there are people who make StarCraft 2 maps for a living for the major tournaments out there. Because if you haven't watched the Korean large tournaments, they have a lot of freaking sweet maps. Everyone gets a little bit jealous. That's where maps like Tal'Darim Altar came from. I know that a couple of other maps out there as well. Daybreak is a good example, and Cloud Kingdom was made by someone other than Blizzard. So anyways, seeing those maps is very nice to see on the ladder, seeing much bigger, more macro-oriented maps. Although they all, I mean, they have one map where you're completely walled in by your own rocks, so you can actually double expand before your opponent can even kill their rocks. Always kind of cool. And then also they do have maps that are more oriented towards rushing. They have maps where expansions will have like 3 high-yield mineral patches and then 4 or so regular mineral patches. Lots of cool stuff like that. Some expansions with 3 geysers. You guys get the idea, but they definitely make the game a lot more interesting. Down goes the barracks for Beast, as he is going to be walling in here pretty standard. You don't necessarily always see the wall in versus Protoss like this, just because there is a lot of openers, especially with Void Rays and Oracles being so prevalent now. You won't necessarily see these types of wall ins that much. But it's also not that bad of a thing. The probe right here will probably try to harass this depot really quickly. Won't be able to knock it down because this SCV is going to finish this. And there we go. The probe is going to escape. Kind of surprised to see the probe running away right away when he would have had a chance to attack this SCV. Might actually been able to have killed the SCV as well, because he stayed on this side for quite some time. So kind of surprised to see him go ahead and retreat right there. Oh my god, that SCV is like seriously just refusing to move. That was total probe bait. There he goes. Finally going to go ahead and go back inside. But anyways, as this game is getting underway, I want to talk to you guys a little bit. As per usual, many of you know that I'm currently in the process of moving. That's why the videos haven't been as common. But as most of you know as well, well, number one, Heart of the Swarm is actually coming down on the 1st. What that means is that there is not going to be any Heart of the Swarm beta servers up on the 1st, which is only about 5 or 6 days away. I think it's 5 days away right now, but that is going to be happening relatively soon. So it'll be about a month. No, it's not even a month. It's like 2 weeks without any new Heart of the Swarm content. So just remember that, guys, that the game will be down. However, Wings of Liberty will still be up, so maybe I can find some fun stuff to do with you guys as kind of a throwback to the game that we all know and loved. It took 3 years for the expansion to come out, and it was a good, glorious 3 years. We do have the factory going to be going down right now. Of course, there is going to be lots of launch parties and things like that. I know some details have been released. I don't want to say anything that I shouldn't, but just know that there are launch parties going to be taking place. So make sure, guys, while you're waiting for the game, while you're installing the game, and while you're playing the game for the first time, that you tune into those launch parties. Definitely support all the community-driven stuff that's going to be going on. And on a more serious note, guys, if you follow me on Twitter or Facebook, you know that I actually stabbed my eyeball onto the corner of my desk. Don't know how I actually did that, but for those of you who do not know, my desk is a glass table that sits on top of 2 metal legs, and I think I've uploaded pictures and stuff of that on Twitter. But anyways, I had Atlantis set down on the ground because I was cleaning off my desk, and then when I bent down to pick him up to put him back onto my desk, my eyeball just fell directly into the corner of the table, and I have a bloody eye. We'll see if it actually turns into a black eye or not. So you know what? If I miss anything in the replay, if I miss anything on the minimap, I'm going to blame it to the fact that I stabbed my eyeball. And I don't care what any of you have to say, because that was quite the rude awakening, that's for sure. But you know what? The show must go on, bleeding eyeball or not. We definitely all want to be playing more StarCraft 2. So we do have the orbital going to be coming up at the expansion. Got a starport on the way for Mr. Beast. And looks like the Mushroom Core right there is going to go ahead and actually delay this. Looks like the auto-repairing SCVs there got a little bit confused. You can see just how much it actually does hurt your income. They're actually cutting it in half as those SCVs were trying to work their way back to the mineral patch. And I guess it actually affects the workers more if you actually force them to click off of the mineral patches, because then when they're trying to run back to the mineral patches, they're moving so slowly because they're all trying to go here and then split up and go to all the other mineral patches in slow motion. But if you just drop it on an oversaturated mineral patch, it's not going to hurt it that much because there's lots of SCVs there to kind of compensate. But anyways, we have a lot of Stalkers now out for Mr. Scott. We'll see if he's able to put on any pressure or not. The bunker has taken a little bit of damage here. The fact that he hasn't repaired that could be quite troublesome, especially since there is going to be an attack here relatively soon. But the Hellions going to be slipping on out of there. And remember, the Hellbat does require transformation servos at the factory tech lab. So this is actually on the newest patch, which just came out. So kind of cool to get replays on those patches. But basically, what they changed with that is they made it so Hellions not only require the armory to transform into Hellbat, but you also have to research an ability called the, what do they even call it now? Transformation servos, to be able to switch them in between the two different forms. However, you can still build a Hellbat. Oh, we do have an attack over here. The bunker getting dangerously low here. Might actually get taken out. The one Stalker has already gone down. The Mothership Core as well might go down. The Widowmine does finish it off in an explosion of blue glory there. Somehow able to save that bunker. That would have been really troublesome for Beast as well if he ended up losing that. But anyways, once you build the armory, you can still make Hellbats, but you cannot transform them between Hellions and Hellbats, which is one of their best functionalities. It's one of the things that makes them the most utilizable. Workers killed only 2 by our blue Terran, so wasn't able to do all that much harassment with those Hellions. So that was kind of some confusion for those of you who were reading the patch notes. Even I was confused until I actually saw a post about it on Reddit. So right here, this is the transformation servos allow Hellions and Hellbats to transform between modes freely. In Hellion mode, they are fast scouts, but by activating Hellbat mode, they become close-range combat units. I don't know that calling them a scout is really the right word. I think it's a fast, maybe fast harassment type unit. But either way, you can still make Hellbats. You just can't transform them just yet. So we haven't seen the armory gone down. But considering he's going for siege tanks, considering he's getting up a 3rd factory here, I would not be surprised to see an armory go down with those Hellbats. And I gotta say, as a player who sometimes off-races Terran for fun, I think that, you know, playing mech as Terran is extremely fun, especially with the addition of the Hellbat and the Widowmines. And I also, just kind of fun fact, I did a recent poll on my Facebook asking you guys what your favorite new unit is in Heart of the Swarm. And did you guys know what the favorite unit was? According to you guys, according to the polling, Widowmine was everyone's favorite new unit, which is actually kind of surprising to me because I personally really like the Hellbat, which is kind of interesting, I guess. If maybe it's not interesting, I don't know. But anyways, lots of people do like the Widowmine. There's lots of utility there, lots of map control, and Terran players everywhere are just loving it. As we do have the Banshee right now, going to be harassing here at the gas, and we'll be able to kill off a couple workers, but a slight misclick there could cost Banshee its life. No, it will be able to escape, albeit barely. It will be able to spot this Nexus as well if he hasn't already. Could begin to attack it or maybe kill a pylon off, but with 2 Stalkers warping in, that is just not going to happen. And you can see Beast here not really doing as much harassment as he would like. He's actually going to try and kill off this Stalker here. Don't know if that's going to be happening or not. I mean, eventually they might be able to. This is going to be one of the world's slowest battles. Almost as slow as 2 Overlords battling, but not quite. And he will actually kill the Stalker there for basically free. He doesn't end up losing any of those Hellions. He will most likely have to repair them if he wants to kind of make it worth it, I guess. But either way, able to kill the Stalker, which is always a nice victory. And you know, Stalkers are not that cheap. It's one of those units where you see it's like, oh, losing one is not that big of a deal. You got to remember, 125 minerals and 50 gas. That is 175 resources invested into just 1 Stalker. So losing him that early is really not allowed. Can't really be doing that as Protoss. Losing 2 Stalkers is kind of the game breaker right now. Here comes the first Widowmine, though, in the mineral line. This is something that Protoss players are going to have to worry about in every single game versus Terran. Looks like he will go ahead and burrow that. Does the Protoss player realize it? Yes, he does. What's he got to do here? He does decide to sacrifice one of the Stalkers there. I think actually sacrificing a probe would have been better because, again, as we talked about, Stalkers do cost a lot. And, again, it's one of those units where you think you can just throw it away, but you cannot. Now, we do have the Terran player over here. Long-distance mining should be an orbital floating down over there pretty soon. He decides that the long-distance mining is better than leaving them at the expansion for now, and building those refineries early is actually a great play. These probes definitely need to get back to work, though. But one thing about Heart of the Swarm that I think is kind of a nerf is your idle worker button is much more difficult to actually notice. Before, it used to be out here in the open. Normally when you're playing, obviously, there's no replay thing right there. But anyways, it was out there in the open. But now, or was it up here? I can't even remember. Either way, it was more obvious. Now it is actually built into the UI, which means that as a player, they can be very difficult to realize when you have idle workers. Now, we do have the Infernal Pre-Igniter on the way. We are also getting the Transformation Servos, which apparently the icon for that is a picture of a Hellbat, so that kind of makes sense, I suppose, as he does have that first Hellbat on, or we'll be able to transform those relatively soon. But either way, I would definitely say that Beast is in the lead, but he is definitely not just got a free ticket to a victory here, because even though Mech is a lot of fun to play, it is still not a surefire way to win. Immortals will definitely destroy those siege tanks, no question. The Hellbat's not going to be able to do that well either. I think we have a really bad rally point going on right here, so yes, we do. Unfortunately for Ska, he's got that bad rally point going, and again, I can tell you from experience that the idle workers is just so difficult to actually pay attention to that he is going to be kicking himself as soon as he realizes that they're just chilling there. Now, we do have 3 Stargates on the way, so that's going to be interesting. Should be having lots of units pretty soon. And there we go, going to be fixing the rally point there. But lots of air units on the way pretty soon, so Beast really needs to utilize this kind of advantage that he doesn't even know that he has, and that his opponent wasn't able to, well, set his rally point correctly. So he really needs to start doing something, though, before those Stargates kick in, because guess what? His Viking count's pretty low. Widow Mine's not going to be that useful versus air units if they are controlled correctly, especially with things like Tempest there. They're just going to completely outrange those Widow Mines. But the Hellbat's going to be moving in. Do they have any upgrades? No, they do not. +1 attack is on the way. Here's a couple Phoenix, though. Should be able to engage those Vikings, and is also actually picking up some of these units. Does decide to pick up a Widow Mine here. We'll see if any Widow Mines down below manage to activate there, but I can tell you, going versus Mech, it's kind of hard to tell actually what's going on between Widow Mines, Siege Tank explosions, Viking shots, and all that. It can be very difficult to actually see what happens in those battles. We can see our Protoss player does manage to come out ahead, and it's really those Immortals. As long as he retains those Immortals, he's got to be able to transition into continuing just getting air, as opposed to having building ground units. Now, he does have 3 Void Rays on the way, lots of workers on the way here as well. Taking a look at our Terran player, he now is up to 6 factories here inside the main base. He also has the double armory done, but has only researched 1 upgrade, so he's more relying on the Widow Mines and additional command centers, which he does have 3 of them on the way, 1 of them at a 4th base, the other one's down here at the 3rd base. We'll most likely just be upgrading those into orbitals, and you can see the SCVs are already told to go back to work. Because no one gets to slack off in that army. But either way, I think the fact that our Protoss player was able to get those probes back on the mineral line, able to secure his 4th base, and able to get up 4 Stargates completely uncontested means he's going to be in a pretty powerful position. You got to remember that Sky Toss is really, really, really good now. So the late game composition tends to be a lot different than it used to be. But overall, a relatively passive game from these players. You can see a total of about 7,000 to 8,000 resources has been lost in this game so far. But you haven't seen too much harassment. You haven't seen Phoenix harassment, Void Ray harassment. Haven't seen too much Mothership Core harassment. You did see a little bit there with that Time Warp, and no drops or anything like that. So I think both these players are just going to be content, and they might actually just sit back and get maxed out, which is actually going to be really exciting for us, because we're going to be able to see the maxed out Army Sky Toss versus maxed out Mech. I'm actually kind of curious to see how that plays out. There's the Andean Pulse Crystals right there on the way. That does increase the range of Phoenix by 2. And you may be scratching your head and going, well, why does he need to increase the range of the Phoenix by 2 when he's going up against Mech? Well, you got to remember, number one, that Vikings are still very, very good, and especially good if you're going Mech, because remember that your Mech armor upgrades also benefit your Viking armor upgrades, and really your armor for all your air units. This is kind of how it's set up in the balance right now, where there is no ship armor. It is kind of put between, well, it's basically one upgrade. So definitely something to keep in mind. As Terran going Mech, you do have the utility to switch back to Vikings at any time if you're researching armor upgrades. There's going to be the drilling claws right there. That does make those Widow Mines burrow, I believe, 2 seconds quicker, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if it'll tell me here. Yes, it does. 3 times as fast, which I do believe is 2 seconds shorter. But either way, able to burrow those almost immediately. You can almost actually run them directly at the army in those engagements and burrow them right on top of the army, and then just watch the fireworks fly. We do have a couple of stalkers down here. Actually going to be doing a bit of harassment. Could delay the gas, could delay the mining, and maybe even able to kill off this missile turret there, which is very, very nice. If we can kill those off, that is resources that our Terran player is not going to get back. The stalkers, though, deciding not to finish it off. Instead, they're going to go for a Widow Mine, and they do manage to kill off 1, but for the amount that he may be sacrificing in this attack, I don't think it's actually worth it here. He is trying to get a couple of shots off. That is going to get cleaned up. Do remember, though, that our Protoss player is at max supply. So as a Protoss player with extra money in the bank, and actually needs to be mining more gas here at this expansion, but when you have additional money in the bank, you are allowed to sacrifice some of these units. Do multi-prong attacks, do Zealot counterattacks, do Zealot drops, do lots of stuff that is basically risk-free at that point. Because as long as you have extra money in the bank, you can always warp in more and more reinforcements as quickly as possible. Not as quickly as Zerg can do it, because Zerg can basically stay maxed out during the entire duration of a battle. But either way, able to get that army back relatively quickly. I'm kind of curious to see, though, exactly how the Sky Toss pans out. There is going to be a Warp Prism on the way, so maybe he is going to be going for those Zealot drops like I was saying. It's more Zealot Warp-ins that you have to be watching out for. But anyways, does have that War Prism on the way. The +1 weapons on the way for the air units. I think Chrono boosting that out might actually be a really good idea. Again, a couple idle probes over here as this army is completely, basically a lazy army as the economy just kind of sits around waiting for those probes to get back to work. But I will say that considering, honestly, that he's at max supply, he's at max money, that his income isn't nearly as important. What he needs to worry about is keeping that army alive and crushing it in a big engagement and in a big way. We do have weapon refit on the way. Got to be giving those battle cruisers Yamada cannon, which means that battle cruisers are going to be on the way. We also have a nuke on the way, so Beast is kind of getting everything in the book. Look at all the upgrades he's getting as well. Getting the high-sec auto-tracking Corvid reactor to make his Ravens a little bit stronger. Weapon refit going. The Phoenix, though, decide to go straight for it. Going to be absorbing a lot of the Widowmine hits, which is actually beneficial to him because that means the Void Rays can really start dishing out the DPS, especially if they use Prismatic Alignment. Look at how quickly those Siege Tanks will fall because the Void Rays do additional damage versus armor units. Here comes the Immortals, though, going to be able to swing right on in. The Vikings going to get taken out relatively easy here by the Void Rays as well because they do count as an armored unit. And there you have it. It does look like those Immortals really making the big difference here. And it looks like the Ghost's going to get taken out as well. The Ghost's actually invaluable there. But overall, units lost is about the same. Let's take a look at the army supply. It is actually, this workers killed 11-4, which is not very much for either player. So we do have army supply 46-89. Our Protoss definitely in the lead. Although you do have to remember that his lead is in capital starships, which it sounds promising. It sounds good. By the time you actually bust down these rocks, there's probably going to be enough anti-air out to deal with the capital ships because Tempest and carriers, yes, they're good. But just because you're ahead in supply with just those units does not mean you're actually that far ahead because there are very cost-effective ways of dealing with them. Widowmine's going to be under fire here, but if they can actually burrow, that's going to be a lot of dead Zealots. They do get taken out, but so do some of the Widowmines. The Colossus, or that's not a Colossus, that's a carrier, may get taken out here by the Vikings. Like I was saying, lots of cost-effective counters there, especially if that army is on the run. There's not a whole lot that that carrier could have done as those Vikings going to be evening the score here in a big way. Although it is 180 supply to 139, going to have to rely on some pretty guerrilla, pretty Gosu tactics here to get Beast himself back into this game. The Tempest now moving forward. The Tempest count is actually pretty high, and remember that Tempest do additional damage versus massive air units. So if you take a look here, you can see 33 damage regular, but versus massive air units, it is 85 damage, over double damage, which I think may be one of the only units who does that ridiculous additional damage. And honestly, I think they're going to nerf that eventually because it basically hard counters battle cruisers and brood lords. We do see Zealots, though, going to be slicing down this army. The Planetary Fortress gets taken out almost instantly, and that's going to be really hurting our Terran player, although he does have a base down on the bottom right side where he can easily transfer those workers should he decide to. Looks like the Zealot, though, with 4 kills, is going to be able to clean that one out, and he's going to continue to battle here. We also have an awkwardly placed base down here in the bottom center. The reason I say awkward is because the Tempest can take out that whole base by itself, and there's not a whole lot that Beast could do, which right now there's actually very limited things Beast can do. He's got to be so careful. He's got a lot of the orbital commands now. How many workers does he have? Not that it really matters. 52 to 72. He could actually sacrifice some more of those workers to make room for even more and more battle cruisers as this army is going to be moving forward. Stalker, Zealot, and Mass Immortal got to be taking down this base. This is going to be the second base victory for him. Widowmine's, though, going to be intercepting these. Phoenix might be able just to one-shot these and take him out, and he does. All 3 die in one shot from those Widowmines, and the battle cruisers are here. Widowmines out in force. Keep in mind that Widowmines are very cheap, but they do cost that 2 supplies, so a Protoss player is going to be maxed out for quite some time. Immortal Zealot, though, going to be running in. Zealots, of course, do have their charge. Going to be taking out a lot of those Widowmines, but if a single one burrows, it's going to be doing lots of damage. They do burrow, and they do a lot of damage. You're actually going to be evening up the supply. Yamada cannons coming out. It does look like the battle cruiser is going to die as well, but not before dishing out massive damage. Yamada cannon, they're going to try and get it off. He does actually manage to there, killing off one last Tempest and getting off a couple of shots before finally getting taken out. The Vikings going to go down as well. Overall units here, you can see still a nuke in the game. 2 battlecruisers, 4 Marines are still chilling out somewhere, probably inside this bunker. Yes, they are. And it does look like a 3rd base going to get taken out. The one at the bottom center, though, has been unscouted, I believe, because who would scout there, considering that Protoss players never, ever expand there. Looks like this orbital has seen better days, completely destroyed, and gets taken out. But the 2 orbitals going to be going down the bottom right side. Might get taken out by these air units at the same time, though. Our Terran player going to be pushing out. He's got a couple battle cruisers, couple of Vikings. And is there any air units here that can take this out? The Widowmine does take out the Observer. If you're wondering why he was able to do that, the missile turret was able to spot that Observer for just a moment. Lots of Stalkers here, though. Take out yet another battle cruiser. Point defense drone, though, could make a huge difference in this game. Huge difference, rather. 136 supply to 127, so relatively close game here so far. 25 25,000 resources lost to 28,000. So I mean, you don't have to be a math major to know that that is a very large number. These two Tempest, though, have got to be careful as there are Widow Mines in the center of the map. Protoss players really need map awareness these days. Not as much as they, really on Wings of Liberty you didn't need as much map awareness, but now you do. You have to know exactly where those Widow Mines are going to be, and you can theoretically see where the Widow Mines are actually burrowing. It does leave a little bit of a dot, but it's very difficult to see on this map specifically. We'll have to see if I can show you or not in the future, but it does look like this planetary may go down unless this army can swing down and save it in the nick of time, which it looks like it might actually be able to. These Widow Mines being very, very aggressive. One Widow Mine does fall, but the rest of them just going to try and chase us up. Basically, Widow Mines are like Zerglings, going to try and burrow there, unable to make anything fully commit though. Looks like another Tempest may fall. If not, it's going to be taking a lot of damage right here. Lots of Widow Mines though have been planted. Right outside of reach though is a big, big army. Can our Protoss player actually hang on? Supplies are still relatively even. This army has to be so careful. The Widow Mines though, he does overextend just a little bit. There's the splash damage. The probes go down, the Immortals go down, and the Stalkers as well. Got to be taking those out. The base down the bottom center proving to be very, very beneficial, because even though he didn't have it for very long, he was able to mine just enough to get as many units as he needed. The Void Rays here though going to be chasing these out, trying to take down a battlecruiser, and they do die almost immediately with that prismatic alignment. And they got to get another battlecruiser here. Does end up losing a Void Ray for his efforts, but whittling down that battlecruiser count is definitely worth it. 2 more battlecruisers are going to be on the way. Widow Mines though going to be eating these units alive, and unfortunately he doesn't have the detection there to spot it. And as Protoss, if you are not paying attention, you are going to be losing massive amounts of units to the Widow Mines there. And I gotta say, this kind of reminds me of Brood War, where there's lots of units in the Brood War days which could get you back into games, and goodbye Tempest there. Basically, the Widow Mine is good versus every single unit if it can detect it, and if it's within range, because this is going to be doing so much damage. But we do have the 6 factories here not churning out in full capacity, because guess what? He doesn't have that much money. So they're just going to be sitting vacant right there, hoping that our Terran player can actually mine somewhere, which there is going to be a lot of mules right now at this bottom right side expansion. This was where it really sucks about Protoss, is if you allow a Terran to get a hidden base like that, if you allow a Terran to get so many orbital commands that they can just mine out a base almost instantly, then guess what? They're going to do it. It's going to make your life a living hell, because Protoss can reinforce faster, but Terran have better economic prospects when it comes to landing at random expansions. And does look at the cannon right there. Got to be killing those off. 1 kill on that cannon. He's feeling like a total boss sauce. As we do have probes kind of moving up here to the top left side. Kind of surprised to see him transfer all of them, considering it is going to be a long distance mine, which I'm kind of curious to see exactly how much his income is going to plummet here. Looks like at about 700, but it keeps fluctuating here quite a bit, as this army now for Beast is looking pretty good. And you got to remember that Beast was actually really far behind. I'm not really sure where our Protoss player went wrong. I think a lot of it was just controlling versus the Widow Mines. That's really what's going to happen if you're unable to keep track of those. A couple of DTs got to slip in here, which is kind of a nice touch, and we'll be able to hit any reinforcements that walk that way. And does look at that unit will survive for now. Most likely it's going to throw out a scan here to kill these off. One DT he's definitely getting chased right now, as the other DT seemingly being spotted by the Raven as well. So nice pathing there, as it does look like the Raven going to be able to eventually catch up and clean that one out. We do see the expansion up at the top left side going to be nearly done here. Nice storms over here. Not enough for another storm, though, to really finish the job. This Archon, though, he wants to kill those SCVs so badly. He's going to go for it. We'll see if he can outrange his planetary while also attacking those workers. Don't think he's going to be able to, and unfortunately going straight for the planetary. Needs to keep it on hold position back here to try and kill off more and more workers. Does manage to kill a total of 11 units, though, with this Archon. So even though it's going to get taken out, it looks like he will get a couple of kills, and might even get a couple more here with the splash damage. 12 kills now. Battlecruiser finally going to be cleaning that one out, but definitely got his money's worth on that one, especially in killing a Viking or 2 there. That's going to greatly benefit him, although 184 supply to 112, and unfortunately Protoss doesn't really have a unit like the Widow Mine where you can just plant it, leave it, and might be able to even up the game if your opponent misclicks a little bit. But I will say that these High Templar have a lot of energy. So if there's anything that's comparable to the splash damage of the Widow Mine, it is going to be the High Templar, although you have more control over High Templar because you get to dictate exactly where that storm lands. Also, feedback on these battlecruisers. Look at this. It takes about half of its life, a little bit less than half, I suppose, but takes a lot of its life if you can actually get the feedback. Then, of course, there's no Yamada cannon. Yo Mama cannon more like, as we do have this base mined out for Ska. And what else does Ska have planned? Look at the High Templar going to be coming down here. Could easily storm, and he does. Not really sure if it's worth it if you end up losing those units, but one more storm, one more storm, one more storm. There it is. Got to be cleaning up a lot of workers. Only one SCV remains. It gets taken out by the Tempest. The Planetary there killing off some invaluable units here. We do have a couple DTs going to be chilling out over here. Can he manage to get any sort of harassment off whatsoever? The missiles are right there. It's going to be tough. But yes, he does manage to do that. But here's a big, big army moving to the top left side. Widow Mine's there, deciding not even to burrow just yet because, well, they're not engaging anything. He knows that nothing's on the way. He's got pretty good taps on exactly what his opponent's doing. Do any of the probes survive? No, they do not. That one hero probe almost manages to, but not going to be happening today. Although 7 kills on this Dark Templar, that is not too shabby. What is shabby for our Protoss player is the fact that there is an expansion down the bottom right side. Not sure if he even knows about it at this point, which kind of sucks because he may not realize just how far behind he actually is. Income tab here is relatively even, but the supplies are going to be heavily favoring our Terran player here moving forward unless he ends up losing these Widow Mines without any sort of substantial backup. This is a lot of Stalkers. He's going to be evening the score here in a big, big way. Storms go down on the Widow Mines. Still not able to fully commit there and be able to kill those off. More feedbacks coming down. So I got to say, for having so few units, this is actually working out quite well. Unfortunately, there are still a lot of Widow Mines down here. If he's not careful, he's going to walk right into it, which is exactly what he did. Getting overconfident here. He thought he could take on this army directly, but a couple Widow Mines have something to say about that. It does look like Beast is going to pull through. He was definitely behind in the early stages, losing a couple battles here and there, but now he's going to be going for the Tempest directly with those battle cruisers. He's saying, you know what, I don't care if Tempest do additional damage versus massive, because my battle cruisers have an I win button in the Omada cannon, and there's the GG. Beast is going to be your victor, and what a great game between these two players. Now, a friendly reminder again that the game is going to be coming down on the 1st, so there may not be a whole lot of Heart of the Swarm content after that date because there's going to be no game. So, yeah, I cannot wait for Heart of the Swarm. Thank you guys for everyone who is posting on my Twitter and Facebook, giving feedback on the polls I was attempting to do. I learned don't necessarily try and do a poll through Twitter because you're going to get a million different responses. Probably better to go ahead and do that through Facebook. So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time.